Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. We're glad you're here this morning. We're going to be in the book of Numbers, continuing to talk about the children of Israel and their travels through the wilderness. We're going to start in chapter 20 and then spill over a little bit into chapter 21. Well, we have talked their traveling. We had talked about the spies, how they went in and they saw the land and the giant grapes. There were, 10 bad spies. You're right, Peter, and 2 good spies. We've talked about so much, boys and girls. Well, they're going to have to travel, remember, in the wilderness for 40 extra years because they didn't believe God could do what he said he would do. Well, in their traveling, they're traveling through other people's land. While they are in Kadesh, the country or area called Kadesh, and starting in talks about they're on the edge of the land called Edom, and they want to travel through. So Moses is going to send some messengers to the king of Edom and ask, so he gets the messengers ready and he tells them the message that he wants them to deliver. So starting in verse 14 of chapter 20, and Moses sent messengers to the king of Edom. Thus saith thy brother Israel, thou knowest all the travail that hath befallen us. He says, you know everything that's happened to us. You know we left Egypt. You know what's happened. You know we crossed the Red Sea. Kind of gives a history of everything that has happened to them. And he says, would you please let us travel through your land? We won't eat your food. We won't drink your water. He says, even all these people who are traveling, we won't go through your crops. We won't walk over that. We will just take the highway. We'll stay on the highway. We won't mess anything up. So he sends this message to the king of Edom. He says, we'll go by way of the king's highway. So boys and girls, do you think the king's going to be like, okay, go ahead, as long as you stay on the highway, not a problem? That's kind of what I thought till I was reading through this, boys and girls, and he says, no. He says, if you step foot in our land, we are going to fight you. And Moses is like, but we promise, if we break anything of yours, if we take anything of yours, even if our cattle starts to eat your grass, we will pay you for it. And the king shows his power. Yeah, the cattle are going to get hungry. The king shows his power by coming out against Moses and the people. So Moses and the people are like, well, I guess we can't go through Edom. We're not going to get to go the straight route. We're going to have to take the scenic route. Well, boys and girls, remember, they've been traveling for years and years and years, and the fact that they're going to have to go even further, which is going to kind of tie into next Sunday's lesson. But so they travel, they leave Edom, they go to a Mount Hor, H-O-R, and they're at Mount Hor, and God has a message for Moses and for Aaron. Aaron was the priest at this time, and God says it's time for Aaron to pass away. It's time for Aaron to die. Can you imagine getting that message? I can't imagine being Moses and getting that message from God, and Aaron even getting that message from God that he tells him it's time for him to die. Well, God says that Moses and Aaron, and then Aaron's son Eleazar, he says, I want all of you to go out and go up into the mount where Aaron's going to die, and I want you to make Eleazar the high priest. So he says you're going to have to take essentially it was shown by taking the clothes, the robe, and things that Aaron had worn as the priest, and giving that to Eleazar. So they obeyed. Can you imagine that walk up that mountain? I can't imagine it. They're going through Moses's and Aaron's head, and Eleazar, Aaron's son. Well, they walk up the mountain and they do as God has asked them to do. And Moses takes the clothes from Aaron and gives the robes to Eleazar, makes Eleazar the high priest. And Aaron does die there to return to the camp. Well, they begin traveling. They begin traveling again after Aaron has passed. 20 says, and when all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, they mourned for Aaron 30 days, even all the house of Israel. They took a break and they mourned. They were sad about Aaron dying, and they took the time to mourn his loss. Well, then we go into chapter 21. Okay, so they're traveling again, boys and girls, and they're going to encounter, it says in verse number 1, and when King Arad the Canaanite, which dwelt in the south, heard tell that Israel came by the way of the spies, then he fought some of them prisoners. So another nation, not Edom, another nation, King Arad, the Canaanite, came out. They attack Israel and they take prisoners. It's kind of like, wait, God, what's happening? What are you doing? Verse number 2, and Israel vowed a vow unto the Lord and said, if thou wilt indeed deliver this people into my hand, then will I utterly destroy their cities. Verse 3 goes on to say that the Lord hears them. They said, Lord, they've taken us prisoners. Lord, give us victory. And if they give us victory, we will utterly destroy them because of what they've done to your people. And the Lord destroyed those people. Verse number 3, and the Lord hearkened to the voice of Israel and delivered up the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities. And he journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom. They had to go around Edom. Can't go through because the king said no. So they ends in verse number 4 with saying, and the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way. It's kind of is a discouraging part of the story, boys and girls, because Edom's not letting them travel through. They came out to fight them. They had to go around. Aaron dies. They're mourning the loss of Aaron. Then they're traveling, and this other king, King Arad, comes out, takes some of them prisoners. But it didn't stop there. What did we actually see the people of Israel do? They go to God. Something bad happened, and they're finally learning. They're finally going to God when something bad happens. And they went to God, and God gave them the victory. They were able to defeat the Canaanites. But overall, boys and girls, they're dealing with a lot of stuff, and there's still some discouragement, which will play into next Sunday's story. But boys and girls, they finally did what was right. When they saw something bad happen, they finally went to God with it. Boys and girls, I hope you've seen victory. If we've studied the children of Israel and it seems like they complain, and then the next week we talk about them complaining, and the next week, we're constantly talking about that, boys and girls. But look, there's improvement. And this week's story, there's improvement. They're starting to follow God rather than their own selfish ways. Boys and girls, I hope that this week, when you're asked to do something or something hard comes up, and you will listen, as Peter's showing here, but you'll listen and you'll do what's preached and taught. You'll listen and you'll go to Him, boys and girls. You won't try to solve everything on yourself, on your own, because God wants to help you, boys and girls. God wants us to come to Him. Will you go to Him even today with the things that are bothering you? Boys and girls, you can talk to Him anytime.